Travels with Dottie here. It's Rob. And one of the points I'm making walking towards the camera is I'm walking pretty normal. Not perfect, but pretty normal. And that's the source of the topic today, where right after I retired, some fears about my physical health came true and consequently my financial health. Because I retired, I was 61 when I retired. So I wasn't collecting Social Security yet. It was December 1st, 2021. So I was 61, wasn't collecting Social Security, and was not going to be eligible for Medicaid um, until I was 65. So I had almost 4 years to wait until I got that insurance. So I'm going to tell you the story of what I did about health insurance and the health issues that I encountered almost right away in what I did about them. Thanks for joining me. And I'm going to get it on the other side there next to Dottie. And we're going to have a chat about this. Here it goes. So it's December 1st, 2021. My last day at work, and I hook up the trailer and I head west to Pahrump, Nevada, which is where I was going to establish my residency. And I got there, checked into the RV park, and I had 30 days there. I needed to stay in order to establish my residency. And about a week into it, maybe 2 weeks, around the 14th, I think, I was doing some maintenance. And I can't remember what it was I was doing, but it involved the drill and something sharp. And I really cut myself pretty badly. And I needed to go to an urgent care to get stitches. So I went to the urgent care to get stitches. And I realized that my health insurance from my job, I had great health insurance, was still good. That was the good news. It was still good until the end of the month. So I had no financial fears of getting the stitches, no big deal. And they took care of that. But the doctor said, you have very high blood pressure. And I understand you're injured and you're maybe a little upset, but I'm going to recommend that you hang around here for another hour and we monitor your blood pressure and see what's going on. And that's what we did. And I did. I was perfectly calm. I wasn't excited. I was a paramedic. A cut that needed stitches was really not a big deal. And I wasn't in pain really at all. Yet I wish I could remember the blood pressure. I think the top number was about 170 over about 110. I was very hypertensive and I hadn't monitored my blood pressure in years. And so I think I hung around for close to 2 hours just to make sure. The doctor said, you have very significant hypertension, and I'm going to give you a, a prescription for, I think, 15 days worth of medications. And then you need to get with your regular doctor and get on medication permanently. This is serious stuff. So, okay, I can handle this. And I got home and I realized I don't have a regular doctor. I went online and I found a website called Dr. Says, Says, and I think it was $25 or $30 an appointment, cash. So I made an appointment. I got a doctor online, told the story, and he prescribed medication that I was lucky. I was able to get that medication, the generic cash pay out of Walmart, just a few dollars a month. It was not a big deal. But the first thing I find when I retire is I have a a condition that's needs to be treated going forward that I didn't know that I had, high blood pressure. Now, I was pretty significantly overweight, so that was a consideration. My wasn't getting that much exercise. I knew there were lifestyle changes that I could make to really help out the hypertension, but in the meantime, I gladly took the medication, and it ended up being what they call a diuretic, and all it does is it encourages your body to release water, and that the water is part of the plasma that's part of the blood that's in your plumbing system in your body. And if you lower the volume of the liquid in the system, the pressure is going to go down. Any plumber can tell you that. And it works pretty well. And they warned me, oh, you're going to have to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And I'm like, I already do that anyway. So that's not a big deal. So I got over that hurdle and I got thinking about what I'm going to do about health insurance. And I really couldn't afford much, but I qualified in Nevada for the health exchange. Some people call it Obamacare. It's the Affordable Health Care Act. And I was able to, I looked at all the policies, even the expensive ones. I think they call them platinum. There's bronze is the low end, platinum's the high end. Even when you're paying big money extra, there's still pretty big deductibles. And it was like, I didn't see an enormous benefit to paying the extra, so I got the bronze level, and basically, it was about an $8,000 deductible, and essentially, other than things like certain vaccinations and preventative things that didn't apply to the deductible, virtually everything else applied to the deductible. So I realized unless something major happens that's gonna cost a lot more than $8,000, I'm on my own financially to take care of my health needs. I'm like, "I'm good. Not this is not a big deal." I have maybe 8 or $10 a month for that medication, and every 90 days or so, I'm gonna have to do a Dr. Say's appointment for $30, and they'll redo my prescriptions, and I'll be fine. Not a problem. Okay. That's not the part that I was hiding. I talk pretty openly about that. And the thing that I didn't really disclose, because in a very real way, I wasn't disclosing it to myself. It happened subtly and fairly slowly over time. That first winter, I was in Quartzsite and I was having a great time. And I remember one morning waking up and I felt like on my thigh here that I'd pulled a muscle and it was painful. So I figured that'll just, if I pulled a muscle or something, I don't remember doing it, but it'll go away. It didn't go away. It got more and more painful, even when I was sleeping, but it happened gradually over a period of time. And it was changing the way I was walking, but at first I wasn't really noticing it. A couple of friends mentioned it. There were a couple of viewers that said on a lot of my walking videos, "Are you okay?" And I'd blow it off. I go, "Nah, I'm fine, just a little stiff. I'm over 60 now." And this pain got worse and worse over time. So here's how I dealt with it. There's a chiropractor in town. So I went to see the really popular chiropractor in in Quartzsite, and his lobby is always packed with people on his office days. And I went there and I explained everything to him. I said, "Do you have any idea what it is?" And he goes, "I have no idea what it is, but I can do some adjustments and I can help you out." So I went to a chiropractor once a week. And I'd done uh, yoga for a long time. So I knew yoga poses very well. So I started doing yoga in the morning along with really basic stretches. hoping this would alleviate this. I considered it an annoyance, really. But things got progressively worse to the point where I was using a cane. It was the end of the winter. I had gone back to Pahrump, and I remember going to the grocery store and say, "I got to buy a cane." It's I it's, it was getting really uncomfortable to walk around. So I was doing less and less videos showing me walking, and I don't think I did any showing me with the cane. And it wasn't like I was trying to hide what was going on from any, because one, I really didn't know what was going on. And two, I didn't really want it to be a topic of conversation. So I avoided the, I do remember showing a short when I learned how to walk with a cane. And I didn't, no one really taught me. But anyway, so I went to Pahrump and I decided, well, I'm going to go to another chiropractor there, and I'm going to go to a professional deep tissue massage therapist, and I'm going to go to physical therapy, and I'm going to pay for that all out of pocket, which I did. Now, this new, um, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I didn't go to a chiropractor right away. I did the deep tissue massage and the physical therapy first in several weeks. And I felt like maybe it was getting better, but the physical therapy was terrible. But I asked them after the initial, what do you think it is? And the guy said, I think it's your hip. I think you have a problem with your hip. And I go, my hip doesn't hurt. My leg hurts. He said, it's called referred pain. And that's how it works. And I really didn't fully believe that. The massage therapist, of course, had no idea. And after a few weeks, I didn't seem to be getting better. So I went to a chiropractor there, and he did x-rays. And he looked at the x-rays and he said, Rob, you have very significant arthritis in your right hip. And that is the cause. And he showed me how my hip bones in the x-ray, I was rotated. And he said, this misalignment is causing the leg pain that you're feeling. And do you feel any back pain? I said, yeah. And I'm having trouble sleeping. And he said, what you really probably need here is a hip replacement. And I'm like, I can't do that. I, is there anything we can do in the meantime? He said, if you're willing to come in 3 times a week, I think it was $45 or $50 a session. So it was expensive. And I'm like, my first thought is, oh my gosh, am I being scammed by a chiropractor? But I was pretty desperate. I wasn't sleeping well. I couldn't go anywhere without a cane. It was, it was tough. So I agreed to try that. And believe it or not, following those instructions and going to see him 3 times a week, within 2 weeks, it was way better. Within a month, no cane. But I had to keep going back, and he had to keep adjusting me to try to keep me straight. And he kept saying to me, he goes, keep in mind, this is temporary. And sure enough, the next year when I went back to Quartzsite, things got progressively worse. And I knew that the chiropractor in Quartzsite used a completely different methodology than the guy in Pahrump, and I knew, and he warned me. He said, I would be careful going to another chiropractor that doesn't follow what I do here, because what I'm doing is helping you. Anything else could actually hurt. So things got worse and worse, and I started researching what's the cost of a hip replacement, and it was pretty substantial. even with that insurance I had, and I said, I'm going to tough it out until I get Medicare in February of 2025. And I would go back to Pahrump. I'd have a series of adjustments over a few weeks and I would get better. And I went through this loop for a couple of years there where when I was in Pahrump spending all this money on the chiropractor, I didn't need a cane. I was fine. But then I'd go for the winter. I would go down to Quartzsite and I would slowly deteriorate again. And I'm paying a lot of money out of pocket to try to keep myself well. The other thing that I did was in Mexico, in the pharmacy, they had a non-narcotic under the tongue sublingual pain medication. Let me look it up. I'll tell you what it is. Hang on. Oh, I'm upside down here. Sorry about that. I remember the Spanish name. Toradol. It's a prescription NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug used for short-term management of moderately severe acute pain that may otherwise require opiate-level analgesia. And it was inexpensive. It came in sleeves of 6 pills a piece, and I'd go down and I'd buy 10, 20 of these sleeves, and I'd be popping these things, and it was making the pain manageable. But there's probably many of you looking at your screen, listening to this and going, oh my gosh, that's terrible for you. And if you're saying that if you're yelling that at your TV, you were right. It has, let me read you the side effects. Carries a risk of serious side effects, including GI problems like peptic ulcers, bleeding, perforation, cardiovascular events such as heart attack and stroke, and kidney problems. The risk of these side effects increases with higher doses or prolonged use. I had high doses and I had prolonged use. I was really because here's the reality. When I look back on this, I probably could have figured out a way to have the surgery with the $8,000 deductible. I probably could have figured out a way to make that work. I'm thinking it probably wouldn't have cost me $8,000. I didn't realize that then. I was looking at what does it cost out of pocket to have the surgery? It was like 70, 80. The surgeon that I ended up having, to give you a preview, his gross billing to Medicare was over $90,000. The actual, it wasn't his gross billing, it was his gross amount, but the amount he was allowed to bill Medicare was like less than $10,000. So it would have been close to 8,000, but I could have found a way to make it work. And I'm taking risks here that I wasn't fully aware of. And popping these pills like they were Skittles was a really bad idea. But I'll save you the suspense. I got lucky. When I turned 65 and when that Medicare card, it actually took effect when I was 64, technically, because I turned 65 in February and February 1st, it took effect, and I hadn't technically turned 65, but I had that card, and I immediately found a doctor in Quartzsite that I trusted. He's actually a nurse practitioner, and he found in my blood testing that I had some moderate r liver dysfunction, and he attributed it to I was very honest with him in what I'd done. He said, "This is what you've done with, taking that medication." He said, "You need to stop right now." And he gave me an alternative medication. I think it was meloxicam or something. And he recommended an over the counter that's not an NSAID. And I, at the same time, I was making an appointment with a surgeon in Yuma to actually do the hip replacement. And when I say I got lucky, on the follow-up blood test, that those indicators had disappeared, and I got lucky. The other thing that I had done is that I knew weight was creating a problem for high blood pressure with me, and it was, I'm sure, putting more strain on my hip. And I knew that I tended to hide. Doctors would say you have pre-diabetes, right? Because my blood sugar was just at the edge, not quite type 2 area. And I started doing blood sugar testing. And sure enough, by anyone's definition, I was I had become a type 2 diabetic. And uh, and I combated that because I heard about these GLP-1 medications that you've all heard about, these miracle weight loss injectable things. And my insurance wasn't before Medicare, insurance wasn't going to pay for it. So I think when I started taking it through an online service, it was like a generic sort of version. I'm not quite sure to how these companies get away with doing the generic version, but they do. And it was the generic version of Mounjaro. And I think it was costing me $400 a month. But it was doing, for sure, it was suppressing my appetite, and I was losing weight. And I went from about 260 down to about 220. And that's about where I am now. So I lost about 40 pounds. So that was a big help. And while I still have high blood pressure, it's way less severe than it was. And when I got with this new doctor, he did blood tests and things and said, yeah, you do have, given that you've been taking this GLP-1 medication for months, and I look at your A1C right now, I was still over normal range for the A1C, even controlled on that medication. He said, that for sure tells me I have type 2 diabetes. And he was able to work with the Medicare Plan D that I bought to get approved the real Mounjaro. And it basically cost me, the Part D insurance cost me $89 a month. That's every month for 12 months. But the Mounjaro, which has a price tag retail of $12.95 a month, I was getting for $47 a month right up until June. And then I broke through whatever the deductible is. And instead of 47 a month so July, August, September, October, November, and December, the last 6 months, I pay zero. And I have the brand name, the good stuff. I still take it once a week. It's still controlling my diabetes, and my weight is fairly stable. Now, the doctor says, "Oh, you could lose 30 more pounds, Robert. You're not the picture of perfect weight health. 220, you're 5'11", 220's 215, 220, right around there is too much. You need to be below 200 pounds." And I'm at the maximum dose now of the Monjaro. I think it's 15 milligrams, and uh, uh, I'm pretty satisfied with where I am now. I'm hoping that maybe some of the things that I'm trying to do, eat more fruits and vegetables, that maybe I'll slowly start losing weight just on behavioral changes. And hopefully I won't have to have the other hip done. Now, that's something you've been with for a while. I never hid the fact that I had a hip replacement. What I hid was the years of steadily increasing pain and sleep loss. And oh, by the way, I was also taking a prescription sleep medication long term. And trust me, that's no good for you either. But I was having trouble sleeping because I was in pain just lying in bed trying to go to sleep. So fast forward to today, I had the remember I got the Medicare on the 1st of February, and I bought the Plan G, which is the supplement that's considered the Cadillac supplement. So I pay what I think it's about 170 comes out of your Social Security check for basic Medicare. Then it's another 160 for me per month for that Cadillac Plan G, which, by the way, covers everything except for $257. And you can go to any Medicare provider you want, and the insurance company manages it, but they have nothing to say about approving or declining claims. That's all on Medicare, so that's good. And then 89 a month for the medication plan. And that's an expensive medication plan because guess what? I take an expensive medication, $1,295 retail cost for the medication. So you add all that together, that's a pretty hefty sum for health insurance. So that's over a little over $400 a month. So that comes out to almost $5,000 a year I'm paying out of pocket just for these premiums. Um, and you might say, Rob, that was good for you the first year, but if nothing happens to you next year and all you're doing is following up with your regular physician a couple of times a year, you're maybe throwing away that $160 a month on that huge policy where you're not really using it. But that's not the point. As every year goes by, I realize that the odds of something major happening to me increases substantially every year as I pass 65. It's makes me feel secure that no matter what happens to me medically, if it doesn't kill me, it's not going to make me broke. Okay. The other thing that I want to tell you about is, and like I said, I never hid the fact that I got a hip replacement surgery, and there's a playlist where I've probably got 15 videos on it from the initial meeting to the day of surgery to days after. I was showing you every step of the way what it took to get through that surgery. So if you're considering hip surgery, go to my playlist and you will find out every single detail of what it was like. So I didn't hide that. And I didn't hide what I'm about to tell you, but a lot of you don't know it because you didn't watch those videos back earlier in the year. I was a little taken aback when I talked to the surgeon and we talked about the surgery. And basically, one thing that surprised me is the surgery wasn't going to be in the hospital. What, you say? They, for squeamish, I'm sorry about this, but basically what they do is they pull your femur, the biggest bone in your body with the socket in the top that goes in your hip. They pull that out and they saw that off. They saw off that ball off the top and they drill into it and put like a ceramic or titanium or whatever the combination is in there, and they stick that back into your hip and they sew you up. So minus the muscle and the skin, they're basically amputating your leg for all intents and purposes and putting you back together. Now, any way you look at it, that's major. That's a major significant deal. And it's not life threatening. The survival rate is like 99.99%. People, if you're going to die of it, it's going to be because you have some reaction to the anesthesia, probably. And here's the thing though, it was outpatient. So I don't stay overnight after the surgery. I have to have my friend drive me like an hour and a half back to Quartzsite where I have this little trailer. So I'm like, I can't recover in this little trailer. So I start doing research, and there was a facility in Yuma, like a mile away from the surgery center, that took Medicare. It wasn't going to cost me a dime. And they said, we'll pick you up, bring you in. You have your own room. Everything will be great. Or I can't remember, own room or maybe sharing with one person. It was top-notch stuff. And we'll see that you get exercise. We'll feed you. Everything will be fine. And I had friends that could take care of Dottie. And I said, this is perfect. It's ideal. I was real excited about it. And they said, the only thing we need a written order from your surgeon. And that's it. Everything will be cool. The surgeon said, no. And I was like, excuse me? No. And I explained to him in detail, I'm not coming back to a home like most of your other clients are. I'm coming back to a little trailer in the desert. And he said, look, I write orders for things that I consider to be medically necessary. And what you're asking for, I don't believe is medically necessary because my experience is that this recovery is going to be far more comfortable and easier than you anticipate. And I have had multiple people, even from Quartzsite, that I've done the surgery on, and they've gone back into their trailers very similar to yours, and they've done just fine. So I'm not going to write that order. And at first, I was upset. I was upset. And then I got over it. One of the things okay, here's a shameless plug for my buddy Cheryl, Pup Camper 58, PUPCAMPER 58. It's her YouTube channel. And Cheryl has been a good friend of mine. And she was a nurse, and she was a nurse in the military during the Vietnam War. Tremendous expertise. And she was camping with me. And she volunteered to be my nurse and help me through the recovery in this little thing out in the desert. And you know what? I was so glad that the doctor made that decision and forced me to do it because it was easier than I thought. I was more comfortable. I was able to be with Dottie and George, and I was able to be with my friends. And Cheryl and my other friends, Sally and Barb and Judy and Lisa, all supported me in camp while I was recovering from this thing. So I got to be with my dog and my cat and my close friends. And anytime I get nervous about something, the nurse would come over. She was checking my wound to make sure nothing was going on with that. And I did have one minor complication. I forget what it's called, but under the wound, a big swollen bubble developed. Seroma. It's called a seroma. And it turns out this isn't really serious. And she gave me some directions on what to do. And we called the doctor together, gave me the same directions. And then when I went out after, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks for my follow-up visit, he just drained it. He said, we can leave it or go away. And I told him, I'm going to drain it. Yeah, drain it. It went away. That was the only complication. that I had. So it ended up being a really good experience, but it was a real lesson for when you're going to make this decision and you think, I'm healthy, nothing's going to happen. And suddenly you're out there living in a little trailer, you don't have a home anymore, and you're hit with, oh, wow, I have blood pressure, I can deal with that. I have diabetes, I can deal with that. But now I have this debilitating pain that I'm not sure exactly what it is, or I can't afford to do anything about it. Then I have this big surgery when I can finally afford it, and I don't have a place to recover that I think is going to be comfortable. But it turns out it was plenty comfortable. But these are things that I got to tell you, I didn't consider these things to be real, any kind of real possibility when I first started. I realized, hey, I'm 61 in 9 months or something, and I can hang on for the 4 years and change to get to 65 to get that full medical care. Somehow, some way, I'll survive. And I did, but I had no idea what kinds of things I would have to, physical things I would have to deal with and overcome. I just figured, hey, what are the odds of anything happening just between 62 and 65? Right. Come on. That's 3 years, right? And I take a couple of breaths, it's less than 3 years. It's, let's call it rounded, let's call it 2 years. And 2 years is nothing. It's really a year. I can rationalize almost anything, trust me. But the old adage, plan for the worst and hope for the best, is, you know what? It's always been good advice. Oh, it's always been good advice. Oh, I'm disconnected the device. I'm hoping I can see the red light. I'm still recording, but I had the picture on my phone to make sure everything was good. Clearly, parts of this I didn't hide. I never hid anything deliberately from viewers. I just didn't want it to be a topic, me going around on a cane and not totally sure what was going on. I didn't want to put that out there because, frankly, there's a whole section of people out there that cannot resist giving medical advice to strangers in the comment sections on their YouTube page. And I just didn't want to, I didn't want to hear that stuff. I avoided a lot of this. And I still really don't want medical advice. Now, I say that in just the other video, someone gave me advice by kindly buying me a vest, for a yellow vest for riding around on my bike. And that's not medical advice. That's safety advice. And I didn't think I needed safety advice until I got that advice. Then I'm like, you know what? That's really good. That's a really good idea. And even right after I got it and I was on camera talking about it, I was even talking about folding it up and putting it in the back of my bike. And I stopped myself and I said, let's put it on, see how it feels. And I put it on and I thought, you know what? I'm going to wear this every time I ride the bike. There's no reason not to. And even though I was a paramedic and a firefighter in my past, the person that gave it to me was an ex-paramedic. And she knew what I knew intellectually, but sometimes you know things intellectually, but you have a hard time applying it to yourself. I know visibility for pedestrians and motorcyclists and bicyclists is a huge measure to prevent yourself from being in an accident with a vehicle. But in the second I put that vest on, I realized I'd been a fool riding on streets without a vest. So I'm going to wear the vest from now on. I'm going to take that advice. Now that's different from medical advice. It really is. Medical advice, you don't need, how many times I've heard when I've mentioned the high blood pressure and the diuretic, oh, don't take those medications, eat carnivore diet or do this or do that or take this supplement. I did it and I never had problems with blood pressure again. Good for you. Not my thing. I do my own thing between me and my doctor and my own research. And do I always do the best thing? I think I just proved no, I don't always do the best thing. But the YouTube comment section isn't where I want to get my medical information. But that safety advice, I wouldn't have anticipated that would have been welcome, but it was. And I've asked people not to give me a hard time about not wearing a helmet here in Eagle Nest. I do wear a helmet. Other places, like certainly when I'm out in the desert and there's a higher risk of me falling over because of the terrain, I wear a helmet. But I don't here. It's just such short distances that I've decided I'm and I'm going to continue to decide I do want to take that risk. Um, and there's some people that feel strongly that's just a silly idea and taking an unnecessary risk. And you're probably right, but you're not going to give me any information that I don't already have. So I don't the my detection system holds any comments like that. They never see the light of day. But I do read them all. Even comments that I don't like, I read. And when I read something I don't like, I take a moment to consider, does this person have a point? Even if they're being nasty, I don't want to rob myself of insight because someone's not being polite in how they're delivering a message that potentially could be valuable. And that was exactly how I processed the picking up the present and realizing it's a vest and reading the letter. And I'm like, this isn't advice that I asked for, but after I considered it and sat with it and put that vest on, it became really welcome advice. And so I'm not telling you don't do it. I'm telling you that you will likely be the only one that can see the comment. And that's how that works. If I get a comment that I don't want on the channel, hey, a little hummingbird, you see him? He's coming to thank me for putting fresh food in the bird feeder out back there. I finally got some sugar and followed the directions carefully and filled it up. I bet he's pretty happy about that. No, that was a she. That wasn't a he. The he have bright colors. I lost my train of thought. Oh, I was telling you how it works where there's a button that says I can hide you from the channel. And basically it means that you don't experience anything differently. You can continue posting as many comments as you like, but you're the only one that can see them. I no longer see them and no one else can see them. And you can continue to watch the channel or not, but just your comments become invisible. And the only way you can tell that's happened is that, well, one, people are like, how come this guy's not responding to me? And they double down and get insulting or try to get me mad. And they're like, why isn't this guy responding at all? It's because I don't see any of them past the first one where I've hid you from the channel. And some people, I've gotten emails from people that said, hey, I went on, I created another YouTube account and I went out and I looked and none of my comments are there. Why? And I figured out that you did this to me. Why did you do that to me? And then they just get their email blocked. Yeah, I'm not going to engage. Now, if you're a longtime commenter, I'm probably going to engage with you before I take that step. I'm going to explain in a response what my issues are and not hide that. And some people respond really well to that. So I'm not going to take someone that's been following my channel for a while and they say something in the comments that is disturbing to me. I'll discuss it. And sometimes I'll say, send me an email and we'll discuss it in private. And I've done that before too and resolved the situation without having to do the hide it from the channel. But some people think if you do that and people have done it, I'm just going to create YouTube, ch- a new YouTube account and I'm going to keep saying those nasty things. You can do that, but I figure it out pretty quick. And it takes click, click, 2 clicks for me to hide the comment in the new channel that these people have created. And it takes them way more than 2 clicks to create a new account. So they give up pretty quickly. I'm not sure why I went into that detail, but the comments on my channel, 99.9% of them are wonderful. People take the time to share their stories and their experience. And sometimes, and I'm going to say often, I'll have a topic like this that's applicable to older people considering this lifestyle, and I'll bring out some issues. And when you look in the comments, there's sometimes more valuable information in the comments from the listeners than what was contained in my video from people's personal experience. And I love that. That is absolutely amazing. And I don't know how long I've been talking here. How long have I been talking? 45 minutes. Don't you think that's long enough? Dottie and I invite you to keep watching the channel. I'll have more stuff. Just to tell you, I have about a 3-minute positive news video every day. That is, I scrub the internet looking for positive stories of generosity and kindness. And I report that every day. And I've been doing that for well over a year. So let me not ask, but let me check. I'm moving it upside down. That's the problem. And I'm going to tell you how many days in a row I've been doing this. And I'll have to go to the short section. And today's short positive news video was ugly prank turns beautiful. And I published that 2 hours ago. And it was day 513 days in a row I have posted these videos, and they're in a playlist called Positive News. And if you want to sit and watch 513 positive news stories, you're welcome to do that. But they go way, way back to they go back 513 days. And this spring, I'll hit 2 years doing it. 2 years every day. I've never missed a day. Even my surgery day, I did a positive news video. And I think it was on advancements in surgery, in hip surgery. I think it was a positive news story about that, if I recall. And anyway, thanks for joining us. And I hope you like the channel. And we'll see you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.